Some of you are saying, Michelle, on your screen it said HS2. Well, yeah, because what I want to ponder tonight is specifically that northern question, because there is another element to HS2 which people do sometimes call HS3, which is, it gets called a few different things, basically, Northern Powerhouse Rail, for example, but the essence of it is connecting the key northern cities. Now, Andy Burnham there speaking very passionately, Aaron, and, you know, the suggestion is basically Westminster are almost dictating to the north what is and isn't going to happen. This is quite a lot of speculation at the moment whether or not they were going to scrap this Manchester leg, which would be a very bold move, by the way, because, of course, the conference is going to be in Manchester, the Tory conference, imminently. But anyway, when it comes to north and connecting the north, do you think there's an appetite for that from Westminster to help facilitate that or not?
I think none of this makes any sense whatsoever. So you've had, for instance, the talk of free ports amongst Conservative ministers, particularly from Rishi Sunak when he was Chancellor. So what they're seemingly proposing, therefore, is a free port in Liverpool. You have this wonderful new piece of infrastructure with lower labour regulations and standards, which I don't agree with, but that's their agenda. They have a majority. And you get your goods there, and then all of a sudden the train networks, in order to get it to other parts of the country, is going to be second rate. And I think what your viewers and listeners have to think about is if someone's an investor and they're looking at Liverpool or Leeds or Manchester, are those cities more attractive to invest in than Bilbao, Lyon, Marseille, places with high-speed rail, very good labour markets, very smart, talented people willing to work hard? And I think that question of transport and high-speed rail, or just rail in particular, connections, is a huge one. And I think I really am very sympathetic to what Andy Burnham. Andrew Burnham, yeah. Andy Burnham is saying, because without this, Manchester cannot be a Premier League European city, which is what he wants it to be. It's going to really struggle, like I said, to compete with places like Turin or Milan or Bilbao. So I can understand why he's so angry. I don't think court's the way to go. I think we need to build a political consensus in this country across all parties about the need to build precisely this infrastructure.
Yeah, we touched upon this very briefly a few days ago as well, and one of my panellists was pointing out exactly my thoughts, which is, if indeed these politicians are so passionate about the north, why did all of the commencement of this HS2 start in the south? Why was there so much focus on the London and the southern elements? Why wasn't all of these projects started literally top down, literally north down? And by the way, there'll be loads of people getting in touch saying, stop calling places like Hull and Manchester the north, Michelle, because to a lot of you that is not the north, that is the Midlands, I hear you. But what do you make to this?
Oh, I'm just completely puzzled as to why it should be a high-speed rail, a form of transport this country simply does not need. Look at a map. Great Britain, in terms of population and square mileage, is much, much smaller than France, where high-speed rail has been reasonably successful, or Spain or Germany, and its distances are much shorter. What this country needs, and has not had since the government smashed it up in the 1960s, is a decent low-speed, medium-speed rail system connecting everywhere in the country up in the way that it used to be and ought to be. Ideal, in fact, rail transport is ideal for our very tight, narrow countryside and our very close-together cities in our highly developed country. And there's no point in trying to make trains run at 220, 240 miles an hour, which is, by the way, an immensely expensive part of the project, digging the enormous tunnels necessary, making the levels able to cope with it. It's a huge increase in spending. What we need is to restore what I call low-speed one, that's to say a proper railway system connecting everywhere, which this country has not got. It's a simple point. Rail, whether you just believe in the environment is a good thing because you think that the country should be more beautiful and less smelly and less dirty, or whether you believe what Aaron believes, there's no question at all that railways are an immensely superior form of transport to road, not least because of the hugely reduced friction which they have, which enables them to be so much more efficient, and the way in which they can use electricity from any source to run them. So I'm all in favour of building railways, but not high-speed railways. These are political projects. They deliberately, the super high-speed trains are earthbound aircraft. They turn their backs on the towns they pass. They only go to major cities. They don't serve most people. They carve up the landscape, and they are so incredibly expensive. My own railway line, the Western line to Oxford, billions spent on electrifying it. The trains are now no faster than they were in 1987.
And we talk about the expanding cost And I think, actually, there's so many different variations of how much that cost is. It depends what you factor in and all the rest of it. But it was certainly supposed to be about, I don't know, say 33 billion. People are now saying it's around 100, upwards of that 100. Now, a lot of these cost increase, people will say it's due to people almost protesting and saying, well, it's not coming through my town, not coming through my village. So then, to Peter's point, then you're having to do a lot more tunnelling. And tunnelling is, of course, a lot more expensive, perhaps. So when
undoubtedly, it's fantastically expensive digging tunnels.
But then, is it valid for people to say, yes, I want this connectivity, yes, I want my cities to be joined up, but not near me? You're not digging up that beautiful bit of kind of gardening I've got over there. You've got to go underneath. Is that valid or what?
Why should you do that? We have the ghost of a fantastic national rail system still there. Mostly it just needs to be reconnected. In a few cases, there might be some demolition necessary of the things which have been, in my view, probably deliberately built on it to stop it being rebuilt. There's the old Great Central Line, which ran up from Marylebone right up through the centre of the country. Most of it's still there waiting to be reconnected. We don't need all this stuff. We had a railway system which was ripped up by morons in 1963, which could be put back, and we should put it back. And you don't need to go at these speeds. The distance between London and Birmingham is 120 miles. These distances don't justify high-speed rail.
Final word.
I entirely agree with Peter's critique of Beeching's Acts and the mistakes of politicians in the 1960s. What I would say, however, is quickly, why are we building high-speed rail is because it does two things. It does allow us to move more quickly between one city and another, but it also allows more capacity on existing lines. So the question is, if we're going to build more lines, should they be fast or slow? I think it makes sense for them to be fast, but there's probably a little interesting middle ground between Peter and I on this.
Well, there you go. Let me know your thoughts. Are you a rail user? Do you want more rail? And if you do you want it to be faster? Does it matter to you?